Hey everybody, are you ready to talk some science? I mean, in terms of food web versus the food chain. You've heard of that, right? The food web versus the food chain. What in the world are we talking about? Well, there is a technical definition, but for a moment I want to have you imagine in your mind for a moment you are walking outside and you're enjoying the sunny skies and the beautiful air. Oh, wait, excuse me. Gotta get back to earth here. No, seriously, you are walking outside and you are enjoying the beautiful air and you're looking at some trees and you're looking at some bushes and you're looking at some grass. Oh my God, a squirrel runs by. And no, you don't see any bears because you're not in the right location for bears. And no, sorry, no deer. But you will see some possums. You might, oh, there it goes. There's a caterpillar. It's very small. If you look close up, you can see it. And yes, there are some. Is there a mouse over there too? Oh my gosh. Anyway, all kinds of little creatures running around. And there's a lot of little plants happening too. So what is going on? Well, it turns out you're in an area where there is plenty of grass. And that plenty of grass is where the food chain begins. Actually, I should say it that way. The food chain actually begins way up in the sky in that thing called the sun. It's a bright day out right now. You can look up, oops, squint your eyes. There it is. There's that sun. That sun beats down on the earth and it gives all kinds of light to those plants. And you know what those plants do? They do something called photosynthesis, in which they create their own energy, their own food. That's right, they're self-contained. It's something called an autotroph. A-U-T-R-O, oh, sorry, I said that wrong. A-U-T-O-T-R-O-P-H, autotroph. And what they do is they're creating their own energy. They're not the only ones in the world that do that, but for right now, in our scenario, they do it. The plants make their own energy. They're called the producers. They're the primary producers because they're the primary ones that produce the food. Now, the food chain, it's interesting. We got a great description for you. The food chain is a linear sequence of organisms through which nutrients and energy pass as one organism eats another. I'll put it up here so you can write it down if you want to. See? A food chain is a linear sequence of organisms through which nutrients and energy pass as one organism eats another. Okay? That's a food chain. Okay? Now, I'm going to give you a definition of a food web, and then I'll give you a couple of examples. You see that? Okay. Now, what's a food web? A food web, on the other hand, don't get too confused. You just follow along. Consists of many interconnected food chains. And we are more realistic. It more realistically represents consumption relationships in the ecosystem. I know you're getting a little lost in the words there, but write this down anyway. This is your food web. The food webs consist of many interconnected food chains, all right, and are, see what it says here, more realistic representatives of consumption relationships in the ecosystem. Okay? In other words, you got a food chain. What's a food chain? Let's go back to that word food chain and you'll get it. Food chain is one, it starts with the plant. The plant's the very beginning. The plant creates its own food. The food chain starts with that plant right here. Here's that plant. And then the next thing eats the plant, and the next thing eats that next thing, and the next thing eats that next thing. Now, how does it usually work? Well, with the food chain, let's assume you got grass, okay? Let's assume you have grass. Now, the grass is eaten by, guess what? A grasshopper. Yeah, we get creative every day, don't we? Grasshopper, right? So you got a grasshopper, and that poor old grasshopper is jumping from grass to grass. A toad sees that grasshopper, and guess what? Goodbye, grasshopper. Toad eats him. Okay? Well, that toad has a great, excuse me for this, meal with the grasshopper until that snake comes along. Yeah, those snakes, they're just awful people. No, they're not people. They're anyway, snakes. Snakes are snakes. So what happens? Snake sees the toad. And the toad, well, let's put it this way. They're not going to be around for very long when they see a snake. The snake is going to get that toad and, let's put it this way, eat it quick. All right? I'm sorry. I'm grossing you out. It's just the way it is. So that snake ate the toad. Well, guess what? That snake is feeling pretty good. He just ate a toad. But guess what that snake's going to have? The snake is going to be the meal for a hawk. Yeah, that bird flying up in the air. He sees that snake. He makes a nosedive and goes down and grabs that snake. And there may be pictures. There may actually be pictures of a hawk actually picking up that snake and picking him up in the air and eating him on the way up. That's, I know, I'm really making it ill. But anyway, you got to put up with it for a minute, okay? So you got that hawk eating that. So that's the example of the chain. Starts with the grass, goes to the grasshopper, then goes to the toad, then goes to the snake, then goes to the hawk. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all in line, right? Well, the food chain is just a little more complicated, okay? The food chain, probably the food web is a little more complicated. Remember that direct line I have for the food chain? I said one leads to another, leads to another. Remember that food chain? Well, the food web is a little more complicated. Why? It's because of the fact each one of those creatures might eat other creatures too. Like, for example, maybe, just maybe, that the hawk will eat a mouse or a squirrel or a frog. Yeah, you see that hawk has other interests besides the snake. It might eat a mouse or squirrel or frog. The snake, on the other hand, may eat a beetle. He may eat a caterpillar or something else. So even the snake, while it may have enjoyed the toad, may eat other stuff as well. That's how it's a food web. It goes out. Let's look at that little picture again. It goes out there a little more. It reaches out to a broad variety of choices. It becomes a food web. Are we following so far? So you get food chain, food web. You get producers and you got consumers. You've got a producer, which is going to be the plant. You got a consumer, which is going to be a, let's say it's that grasshopper that eats the plants. Well, eventually, let's say a cow eats a plant. The cow eats the plant. Well, guess who eats the cow? I'm a bad guy. I eat those pork chops. I eat those hamburgers. You gotcha. But I'm not a herbivore. You say, what's a herbivore? A herbivore is a plant eater. I'm not a plant eater. I eat the meat, which makes me a meat eater, which makes me a carnivore. Am I getting you yet? Are we all confused already? Come on now. We're almost there. We're almost there, okay? So you got the producer, which is the plant. You got the consumer, which is either going to be the plant eater, which is going to be like a grasshopper or a cow, or you got the meat eater, me, which is going to eat that cow. Oh, gross. You're getting grosser by the minute, right? Yeah, I know. Anyway, so that is just the beginning. I'm not going to go any further because I can see you want to leave the table right now. Anyway, so you see the food chain? Starts off with the grass, and actually that grass starts off with the sun. The sun comes down, starts the photosynthesis process where the plant creates its own food, and the nutrients in that plant attract these other little creatures, and the creatures, one creature leads to another creature, leads to another creature. Food chain. And each creature has many choices in food. That becomes a food web. Are you exhausted like me? Well, at least you got an idea as to what we're talking about when we talk about food chain and food web. If you got any further questions, I hear you got an awesome teacher. And they're coming right now. So let's stay good and quiet. Okay? Pay attention. Remember, food chain, food web. Awesome stuff. We'll talk more later. Bye.